Imagine someone strolling into a courtroom 20 minutes late, designer shades, latte in hand, and the first thing she says to the judge is, "You're lucky I came at all." The room stilled like a held breath. Wooden benches creaked, paper hushed, a bailiff's boot tapped once and stopped. Judge Caprio looked up from a thin folder labeled Bennett, C., a routine parking case, and found anything but routine. She was small but sharp at the edges, Claire Bennett, wife of a Providence banking magnate. Diamonds pricked her ears. The phone in her palm glowed like a badge. She didn't sit so much as occupy the space, a posture that had worked everywhere else. Caprio's tone was even. "Mrs. Bennett, good morning." "It's not," she answered, sliding off her sunglasses, "and I hope this won't take long. My schedule is busy," he finished gently. "We all are. Let's start simple. You're cited for parking in a space reserved for disabled drivers outside the registry on Westminster." It was 5 minutes, she said, a quick flick of the wrist, as if time itself were a triviality she could spend or save. This should be a formality. A pulse of sound moved through the gallery, one muttered, "Wow," a pitying sigh, a throat cleared in protest. Caprio didn't glance their way. He watched her fingers instead, the practiced, impatient tap on the cup lid, the tremor that shouldn't have been there and was. 5 minutes, he repeated. "Did you see the sign?" "I see signs all day," she said, meeting his eyes now. "I also see what my family contributes to this city. My husband underwrites clinics, scholarships, half the murals you pass on your way to work. I expect a little sense." Caprio folded his hands. "In this room, sense begins with respect." It wasn't loud, but it carried. A clerk stopped typing. Someone's keys stilled in a pocket. Claire's smile thinned. "Look," she said, lowering her voice as if shifting to a private channel, "this isn't worth anybody's time. Write the number. We'll take care of it." He opened the folder. The photograph paper rasped. A silver SUV nosed into blue paint and a wheelchair icon, the curb cut sat blocked like a sealed door. The timestamp glared. "Mrs. Bennett," he said, "you chose that space." "I chose not to circle the block," she replied. "I was late. People were waiting for me." "Someone else was waiting for that ramp," he said. "They didn't have a choice." She exhaled, a soft, irritated sound meant to end a conversation. It didn't. The judge's silence lengthened until it had weight. Under the makeup, the late night showed. The hand with the cup tightened, then steadied. From the back row, an older woman murmured, "My husband uses a chair." No one shushed her. No one needed to. The words hung there, simple and irrefutable. Claire lifted her chin. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under." "I understand that pressure doesn't grant permits," Caprio said. "Not here." She glanced toward the door as if influence might walk in with a fresh breeze. It didn't. Just the clock, ticking, insisting. She returned her gaze to the bench and tried one more angle, cooler now, almost bored. "Judge, my family supports this courthouse. Infrastructure is concrete." His voice stayed soft. "This is about conduct." For the first time, something flickered across her face, not outrage, not disdain. A quick, betraying flash of fatigue. He saw it and filed it away with the tremor, the sunglasses, the 20 minutes late. He closed the folder. The lid of her cup cracked softly under her thumb. "In this court," he said, "your money has no jurisdiction. Only your choices do." The room went quiet as snow. Claire stared, searching for the lever that wasn't there. A tiny, involuntary swallow. The defense she'd worn in like a coat didn't fit under these lights. No one would have called it a big case, an $85 ticket, a photograph, a statute plain as paint. Yet you could feel the floor tilt. Not because of the paper, but because of the posture. Here, at last, was a place her name could not open. What no one knew, not yet, the photograph held more than a bumper and a stencil. A second reflection ghosted in the passenger window. A man's profile, familiar to some, combustible to her. The judge's I had already found it. For now, he simply lifted the gavel a fraction and let it rest again. "We'll proceed," he said, and the scrape of the clerk's chair sounded like a hinge turning on a heavier door. "Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Tell me a little about yourself, Mrs. Bennett." She kept her chin high. "My husband runs Harbor Trust. We live in Bristol. I manage several foundations. Scholarships. Food drives. We're very involved." The words were polished, the edges of her voice were not. Caprio heard the scrape under the sheen. "Foundations," he said. "What kind?" "The kind that keep the city from falling apart," she answered, too quickly. "We cover gaps government leaves." "Generous," he said. "And exhausting, I imagine." Her fingers tightened on the paper cup. "Everyone wants something. Money. Access. A photo. If I say no, I'm cold. If I say yes, I'm used." A beat. The gallery softened, even the bailiff looked down. "You have children?" Caprio asked. "One," she said, eyes dropping for the first time. "He's at college." A breath. "We don't talk much. By choice. By his." She straightened, clicking the lid back into place. "This is irrelevant." "Sometimes the relevant thing," Caprio said gently, "is the thing we work hardest to keep out of the room." She gave a brittle laugh. "You make this sound like a confessional." "It's a parking ticket." "It's a choice in public," he said. "Those add up." She shifted, the armor creaking. "I don't usually drive," she said, casual as a shrug. "We have a driver." He was off. "I was late. That's all." Caprio lifted the photograph again without showing it. "The citation is in your name. The registration, too." "It's my car," she said. "Everything is in my name. It's simpler that way." "For whom?" he asked. Her jaw worked. "Judge, do you know what it's like to have your time scheduled in 10-minute blocks by people who think they own you because they wrote checks? I show up everywhere. I keep everything running. I am allowed 5 minutes to buy a file folder without hunting for a space the size of a shoebox. And a ramp big enough for a chair," he said, "was the shoebox you borrowed." She didn't answer. Somewhere a clock ticked past the pause. He flipped a page. "You've had prior fines." He kept his tone light, conversational. "Some paid, some disappeared. Administrative voids. Clerical grace." Her mouth opened, closed. "I don't handle that." "Who does?" She stared at the bench as if it might blink. "The office. My husband. People who take care of things." Caprio nodded, as if she'd confirmed nothing and everything. "You mentioned a driver," he said. "The man reflected in your passenger window, was that him?" A muscle jumped at her temple. "No." "Your brother, then?" The cup crumpled the slightest bit. "We're not discussing my family. We're discussing responsibility," he said. "Sometimes they overlap." She looked past him, toward the gallery, the older woman, the clerk, the restless line of strangers with lives smaller on paper and larger in cost. When she spoke again, the air had cooled. "I grew up told to be gracious," she said. "To make lists, write thank you notes, iron the napkins, smile through noise. To fix what breaks and never let anyone see me sweat. It makes you efficient. It also makes you invisible." "Are you invisible here?" he asked. She swallowed. "Not today." He closed the folder. "You said earlier your time was more valuable than this fine. I suspect your name has been used to make a lot of things simpler. Contracts. Donations. Registrations. He slid the photo to the edge of the bench, kept it face down. Simplicity is expensive when someone else pays. Her gaze fell to the cup in her hand as if she'd only just noticed it. I was late, she said, softer now. And when I'm late, people talk. They think it means I don't care. What do you think it means? He asked. It means, she said, the words landing like coins, I'm always somewhere I don't want to be. The room exhaled as one. Caprio didn't move. Mrs. Bennet, he said quietly, status is not a defense here. It's the context of your choices. And the more context I hear, the clearer those choices become. From the side table, the clerk slid a thin printout. Caprio glanced at it, then met Claire's eyes. You've been in this courthouse before, he said, almost kindly. Only last time you came under another person's signature. She didn't deny it. For the first time, the confidence didn't crack, it lowered itself, set aside like those sunglasses she'd worn in. The bench waited. The case, which wasn't about a ticket anymore, moved forward without her old scripts to carry it. The photograph lay between them like a quiet accusation. Judge Caprio turned it once more toward the light, his glasses catching a glint of silver where the windshield met the curb. Something here doesn't match the story, he said. Claire straightened in her seat. Excuse me. He slid the image forward. Your car isn't just in a handicap zone, it's blocking a ramp. See that line? That's access for wheelchairs. Her lips parted, then pressed shut. I didn't see anyone there. That's not the point, he replied. Someone might have needed it while you were inside. She crossed her arms, fingers tapping against the sleeve of her blazer. You're making this bigger than it is. Caprio didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to a faint reflection in the driver's window. Who's the man sitting beside you? Her breath caught, the kind that can't be hidden. That's my brother. A ripple of whispers spread across the room. Caprio leaned slightly forward. Your brother. Does he also work at Harbor Trust? He did, she said quickly, eyes fixed on the floor. Not anymore. Why not? Her throat worked as she swallowed. He made a mistake. The judge's tone softened but stayed steady. What kind of mistake? The pause stretched too long. He questioned a transaction. He thought something illegal was happening. My husband let him go. The gallery went still. Caprio studied her face, not to trap, but to understand. Beneath the polished surface, something trembled. You haven't spoken since. He blames me for not defending him, she said, voice low. He thinks I chose comfort over family. Did you? I chose silence, she whispered. He set the photograph down carefully. Silence is a form of choice too, Mrs. Bennet. Her composure slipped another inch. The veneer of control that had carried her through charities and cameras began to crumble under the plain light of that room. From the gallery, a chair creaked. A man in a work jacket murmured, "We'd be fired for half that." His neighbor hushed him, but the thought lingered. Caprio glanced toward the crowd, then back to her. Your brother, does he live in the city? Yes, she said after a moment. He volunteers at a veterans center now. You've seen him recently? No. I can't. My husband, he doesn't like, she stopped herself. Doesn't like what? Her jaw tightened. Public mess. Then I suppose today is inconvenient, Caprio said quietly. Her hands tightened around the handle of her purse. You don't understand what this family expects of me. Appearances are currency. If I step out of line, it's not just me they'll bury, it's everyone around me. He nodded slowly, letting the words settle. And yet, here you are. She met his gaze, defiant, frightened, exhausted. Maybe I'm tired of paying for everyone else's dignity. The courtroom air thickened, not from tension now, but from something heavier, recognition. The people watching no longer saw a spoiled banker's wife. They saw a person cornered by the life she'd built. Caprio leaned back, speaking softly enough that the microphone barely caught it. You know, Mrs. Bennet, I've sat here for decades. I've heard every reason, every excuse. But there's one thing I never ignore, when someone sounds like they've finally told the truth. Her eyes flickered, unsure whether to take that as mercy or warning. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? He asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. No, Your Honor. He closed the folder, the paper making a sound sharper than any gavel. In that case, he said, this court will take a brief recess. But as he rose, his glance returned once more to the photograph, the faint image of her brother beside her, and his hand paused on the desk. Because somewhere deep beneath the surface of this minor violation, something larger had already begun to move. When the judge spoke next, the air in the courtroom thinned until her breathing was the only sound left. For the first time, Claire looked afraid. Judge Caprio flipped open a new file, a document stamped with the state seal. He studied it quietly before saying, Mrs. Bennet, this vehicle registered in your name, it appears in another report. Not a traffic violation. Something else. Her eyes narrowed. What are you implying? He set the paper down. Your car was parked outside the Harbor Trust branch on the night 3 employees were dismissed. The same night, an internal audit flagged irregular financial transfers. A hush fell over the gallery. She blinked twice, searching for words. I was just there to pick up my husband's documents, she said. Her voice betrayed her, too fast, too thin. Caprio's tone didn't change. That's interesting. The building was closed at that hour. You didn't have clearance, did you? Her fingers gripped the strap of her handbag until her knuckles whitened. It wasn't what it looks like. Then what is it, Mrs. Bennet? He asked softly. Before she could answer, a man rose from the back row, middle-aged, worn suit, voice trembling but steady. Your Honor, I know this woman. I worked for her husband's bank. She fired me when I refused to alter the numbers in a quarterly report. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Cameras clicked. The bailiff started forward, but Caprio lifted a hand, still calm. Sir, please sit, he said. This is not a criminal proceeding. But it seems truth doesn't recognize jurisdictions. Claire stared at the man. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by dread. Mr. Vega, she whispered, you don't understand. No, ma'am, he interrupted. I understand too well. Some of us lost everything while you signed papers you didn't read. Caprio waited for silence to return. When it did, it was heavy and absolute. Mrs. Bennet, he said quietly, you see why this matters. You came here for a parking ticket, but the story keeps leading somewhere else. She said nothing. Her hand shook slightly as she set down her purse. This isn't about your husband's business, he continued. It's about something deeper. The moment a person believes they're untouchable, that's when the decay begins. Her breathing quickened. The woman who had entered with sunglasses and poise now seemed smaller, the light around her harsher. He leaned forward, not accusing, not cruel. Do you understand why people react the way they do, Mrs. Bennet? It's not envy. It's exhaustion. From watching the powerful call corruption efficiency and arrogance confidence. She looked up then, her voice breaking. You think I wanted any of this? I was just trying to hold things together. By pretending not to see. The question hung there. She didn't answer. The silence that followed was worse than confession. From the front row, the older woman who had spoken earlier wiped her eyes. The room felt smaller, as if everyone shared the same breath. Caprio closed the file and spoke with a quiet gravity that cut deeper than anger. Mrs. Bennet, you think money gives you strength. But it doesn't. It only reveals who you are without it. Her gaze fell to the desk. For the first time since entering the courtroom, she didn't meet anyone's eyes. The judge waited, then said gently, "We'll continue after a brief recess." No gavel strike this time, just the sound of a woman's steady, uneven breathing and the whisper of a truth she could no longer outrun. The next morning, the courtroom was full before the doors even opened. Word had spread, the banker's wife, the scandal, the judge who wouldn't bend. When Judge Caprio entered, the whispers died. He carried a single file and placed it gently on the bench. He spoke without preamble. "Mrs. Bennet, this new report contains something I think you should see." He opened it, reading aloud, his tone deliberate, each word landing like the tick of a clock. In the past year, Harbor Trust has closed dozens of community accounts. Veterans. Retirees. A children's fund. The papers rustled as he turned a page. "Every signature authorizing those closures is yours." Her voice cracked. "I didn't do this. My husband handled everything." "But your name is here," he said, sliding the document forward. "Every line, every stamp." She stared at the pages as if they were foreign. "He brought me forms. He said they were standard approvals." Her voice rose. "I signed because that's what wives do. We keep the peace." Caprio didn't flinch. "Peace built on silence isn't peace, Mrs. Bennet. It's consent." Her eyes glistened, but she held her chin high. "You don't understand what it's like living with someone who owns everything, including you." He leaned forward slightly. "I think I understand more than you think. You had a choice, even when it felt like you didn't." For a moment, she looked like she might fight back. Then something inside her seemed to give way. "I knew," she whispered. "I didn't want to, but I knew. The reports, the transfers, it wasn't right. I just thought, if I ignored it, it would go away." The room stayed silent. The tension, the judgment, the sympathy, all of it melted into something rawer, recognition. Caprio's voice softened. "You're not a criminal by law. But morally, you stood by while harm was done. Indifference is still a decision." Her mascara had begun to run, though she didn't seem to notice. "I just wanted someone to see me," she said. "Not as his wife. Not as the name on a check. Just, me." For the first time, the judge's expression warmed. He pushed the documents aside. "I see you now," he said quietly. "The question is, do you?" She blinked, uncertain if it was mercy or judgment. The gallery held its breath. Caprio closed the file. "This court will reconvene tomorrow," he said, standing. "And when we do, I hope you come back ready, not to defend who you were, but to decide who you'll be." The gavel's sound was gentle this time, almost like punctuation at the end of a prayer. When the court reconvened, no one spoke. Reporters filled the back rows, but even they kept their cameras low. The air felt different, quieter, heavier. Claire Bennet entered without sunglasses, without her usual mask of indifference. She wore simple clothes, her hair tied back. When she stood before the judge, she didn't look like the wife of a banker. She looked like a person ready to listen. Judge Caprio reviewed his notes, then lifted his eyes. "Mrs. Bennet," he began, "you came here over a parking violation. But what's unfolded has nothing to do with asphalt or paint. It's about what happens when comfort replaces conscience." She nodded, barely breathing. He continued, "I cannot rewrite your past, but I can offer you something different, a chance to change its meaning." A murmur swept the gallery. Caprio raised a hand for silence. "Instead of paying a fine," he said, "you will serve 40 hours of community work at St. Agnes Senior Center. No reporters. No cameras. Just you and people who still understand gratitude." Her lips parted. "You want me to scrub floors?" "I want you," he said gently, "to look people in the eye who live with nothing, and still have dignity. You might learn something your money never bought." The words hung in the air. Then, slowly, her defenses cracked. "You think I can just become someone else overnight?" No, he replied. But you can start by becoming honest. That's where freedom begins. Tears welled in her eyes, not from humiliation but release. You don't know what it's like, she whispered. To live in someone's shadow. He regarded her with a calm, steady compassion. I do. Shadows are made when something stands between you and the light. Move, and the shadow disappears. A faint sound broke the silence, the clap of a single pair of hands. It came from the elderly woman in the front row, the same one who had spoken on the first day. Others joined her, quietly at first, then stronger. Claire didn't move. She simply nodded. I'll do it, she said. I'll serve every hour. Caprio smiled, not triumphantly, but softly, like a teacher watching a student finally understand the lesson. This court, he said, is not in the business of breaking people. It's here to remind them they can still stand up. He paused before the final words. Justice isn't punishment, Mrs. Bennet. It's a mirror. And when you dare to look, it shows who you still can be. She left the courtroom in silence, clutching nothing but her folded citation. Outside, the air was cold and clean. For the first time in years, she didn't hurry. Behind her, Judge Caprio gathered his papers, murmuring to himself as if closing a prayer. Law keeps order. But only conscience keeps us human.